kids. We miss you so much. We miss Thursday nights with you. We miss all the fun and the games, the singing, the dancing, and all the crazy times we have on a Thursday night. But we can't meet together because of what's going on. So we want to meet you on YouTube. Hopefully you already follow our YouTube channel. And this week, all the leaders have been telling you what the 5-finger promise means to them, and what our 5-finger promise is. It's just a really simple promise that God gives us, and we use our 5 fingers to remember it. And it's this: it's God will never leave me. And it's that simple. God will never leave me. God will never leave you. God will never leave any of us. And we have loved this week. All the leaders have been telling us what that promise means to them. And today I want to let you know what it means to me. And for me, it means that God is with us. Yes, we all know that, but it's with us all. Not just the old people, not just young people, not just people that go to a specific school, but He's with us all. And we all have different stories. We all look different. We all smell different. We all have different hobbies. We all have different things going on in our lives. And I really want to look at how God is with each and every one of us. Not just the good looking, not just the ones that like football, but God is with us all. And there's some stories in the Bible that show us that. There's a young man called David, and he was young, and God was with him. Everyone else was afraid and they didn't want to face Goliath, but David knew that God was always with him. He remembered God's 5-finger promise and said, I can beat Goliath because God will never leave me. And David was young, and he knew that God was always going to be with him. And we know a man called Joseph, and he wasn't fighting someone. He was thrown into a pit because his brothers were jealous of him. So this is a difference. He wasn't fighting, he wasn't afraid, but actually he was just thrown in a hole, and his brothers left him, and then he got sold as a slave, and he was a bit afraid because he didn't know where he was. But he remembered that God will never leave me. So when he went into Egypt, he remembered that God would never leave him. And then he got thrown into jail. And hopefully none of you have been thrown into jail, but he still remembered in that time that God will never leave me. So even though he was unsure, even though he didn't know what was happening, just like us now, he remembered that God will never leave him. And the last person I want to look at is Daniel. And Daniel really loved God. He prayed to God every day, and the king didn't like how he prayed to God every day, so he decided to throw Daniel into a lion's den. So Daniel he could have been really afraid because lions will eat human. So don't get close to any lions. So he remembered when he was there that God will never leave him. And the king came back the next day, and Daniel wasn't touched because he remembered that God will never leave me. So even though that he was in a really scary place, he remembered that God will never leave me. So like David, when things are coming against us, we can remember that God will never leave us. When Joseph was afraid and wasn't sure what was happening, he can remember that God never left him. And Daniel as well, God never left him when he was thrown into the lion's den. And there's so many stories in the Bible that tell us that God never left us. God will never leave us, and God never left anyone in the Bible, and we're so happy about that. That makes us so joyful to know that God will never leave us. So even though that we're not going to school every day, even though we can't see our friends, even though we can't get down to Hope Kids on a Thursday night, we can still remember that God will never leave us. So hopefully you've enjoyed this week looking at all the leaders and how they've remembered how God has never left them, and God has never left me, and He's never left you. So hopefully you're encouraged, hopefully that you feel great about that, and hopefully you remember the fact that God will never leave me. We do miss you. We hope that when all this is over, we're going to have a big mad party again at Hope Kids. So please keep connected, keep looking at what we're doing on YouTube and on our Facebook page as well. So please keep connected, and we're looking forward to having a big party when all this is over.